At Mugello, there is one pattern that almost always repeats whenever Marc Marquez's name appears on the entry list. Skepticism around his public statements immediately rises. Not because people doubt his physical condition, but because the paddock has seen too many occasions where Marquez lowered expectations only to emerge at the front almost immediately. Ahead of the Italian Grand Prix, that atmosphere has returned once again. Marc Marquez arrived at Mugello carrying a notably cautious narrative. After recently undergoing surgery on his leg and shoulder, the world champion played down expectations and suggested he was not entering the weekend in peak condition. Yet inside the paddock, the reaction moved in the opposite direction. Francesco Bagnaia became one of the most direct voices dismissing that reading. Marquez's Ducati factory teammate saw little reason for the Spaniard to return if his objective was simply to finish races and collect points. If he's back, it's because he feels capable of fighting, Bagnaia said at Mugello. It's difficult to think Marc is here just to collect points. Bagnaia also revealed he had spoken directly with Marquez on Thursday morning. From that conversation, his impression was not of a rider preparing to limit himself. He feels quite good. He's not too worried about his leg. His concern is more about the arm and shoulder, but I think he'll recover well. That comment carried particular weight because it came from someone inside the same garage. In situations like this, internal readings often mean more than public messaging. I interpreted Bagnaia's words not as an attempt to place pressure on his teammate, but as recognition that in modern MotoGP, especially inside a factory operation, there is no room to return half-prepared. Inside the paddock, the perception appears consistent. A comeback decision is not made solely on medical clearance, but also on the rider's ability to sustain race intensity. Mugello is not a circuit that rewards riders searching for rhythm. It demands fast direction changes, stability under high-speed braking, and strong physical control through transitional phases. That is why when Marquez says he is not yet at 100%, people around the paddock tend to read it on two levels. First, confirmed fact, the physical recovery process is not completely finished. Second, an interpretation gaining traction, whether this is genuine caution or a way to reduce expectations before the weekend begins. A similar view came from championship leader Marco Bezzecchi. The Aprilia rider did not see Marquez returning simply to make up numbers. Of course he'll be more competitive, because if he's back it means he's ready. Bezzecchi continued by pointing out that Marquez is too experienced to make decisions without calculation. Marc is very smart. You cannot rule out the world champion from the title fight. He'll be there. Bezzecchi's comments were notable because of his position. As the championship leader with a significant advantage, he could theoretically benefit from downplaying the threat. Instead, what emerged was acknowledgement that Marquez's presence alone alters the competitive landscape. I see this as one of the most important signals heading into Mugello. The threat of Marquez is not being judged by how he feels today, but by how quickly he historically adapts. In the paddock, reputations are built on patterns, not press conferences. And Marquez's pattern over the years has been repeatedly finding performance earlier than public expectations suggest. Historical context matters as well. This is not the first time Marquez has returned from injury while publicly lowering expectations. On previous occasions, that approach often served to manage external pressure while creating room for internal evaluation during the opening phase of a race weekend. That does not automatically make it psychological gamesmanship, but it also explains why rivals are reluctant to take those statements at face value. For Ducati, the situation creates another layer of internal dynamics. In the short term, a competitive Marquez increases pressure around points allocation and development priorities. In the longer term, if he immediately returns to the front group, discussions about performance hierarchy inside the factory garage will inevitably intensify. What stands out from both Bagnaia's and Bezzecchi's reactions is one thing. Almost nobody is buying the idea that Marquez has come back merely to survive. Now, only one question remains unanswered: how far his physical condition can sustain race intensity. And as is often the case in MotoGP, the real answer does not come on Thursday. It comes when the lights go out. From my reading of the paddock situation right now, Mugello may become a defining marker not only for this weekend, but for the direction of the title fight. If Marquez immediately runs at the front, the season's tone could shift faster than expected. If not, Bezzecchi's advantage may begin to look more strategic than merely numerical. What makes this situation interesting is not simply whether Marc Marquez can be quick from the opening session, but how his entire weekend approach is being structured. Riders returning from injury usually build rhythm progressively, yet Marquez's pattern over the years has often been to accelerate that adaptation phase as soon as he feels his physical limits remain manageable. At Mugello, the first indicator everyone will be watching is not outright one-lap speed, but how consistently he can put together sequences of laps. Looking at Mugello's characteristics, the biggest challenge is not pure acceleration or top speed alone. This circuit forces riders to work hard through fast direction changes and heavy braking zones. That is why attention on Marquez's shoulder and arm condition becomes more relevant than a single lap time figure. A rider may still produce a competitive lap, but maintaining braking quality and overall stability across race distance is an entirely different challenge. Inside the Ducati garage, situations like this usually create an additional layer of evaluation. When a rider arrives with physical questions surrounding him yet continues to be viewed as competitive by rivals and his own teammate, the team's focus shifts from outright performance to risk management. My reading is that Ducati will pay more attention to how the weekend evolves rather than forcing aggressive targets too early. From Bagnaia's side, his comments also carried their own weight. He did not sound like someone trying to build psychological pressure or increase expectations. Instead, there was an implicit acknowledgement that at world champion level, comeback decisions generally come after rigorous internal assessment. That gave his remarks the feel of a realistic reading of the situation rather than simple respect for a teammate. Meanwhile, Bezzecchi's position as championship leader gives his comments a different competitive context. A rider holding a significant advantage would theoretically benefit if a main rival has not fully recovered. But the fact he still considers Marquez a genuine threat suggests paddock perception has not shifted. A champion's competitive value does not disappear because of one injury phase. In the short term, Mugello's outcome could shape how rivals approach the next phase of the season. If Marquez immediately fights at the front, other teams may begin treating the title battle as more open than the standings currently suggest.